We support the expansion of the IX1 zone to the existing borders of Skid Row, 3rd Street to 7th Street, Main Street to Alameda. What is the IX1 zone? Well, we're going to break it down for you.
I,
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 I, we, the people of Skid Row, X.
X,
no displaced,
no,
X, no market rate housing.
one,
one. One community united in values.
recovery, compassion, housing for all.
I, X,
Hi, my name is Raymond Lewis. This is for public comment, and I want to talk about what is that? IX1, and IX1 is a zoning for low income. Don't want to say poverty, but people who need help, such as me. I just want to talk about expanding it a little bit more, because the thing of it is that we just don't want someone to give us something for what they think we need. We want to tell you what we need. If anything, we should know what we need. So what I like to say, we're going to expand it from where is that now to 3rd and Main and 7th and Alameda. All that area should be ours. And why is it? This is a neighborhood down here. I ain't gonna say neighborhood. This is a community down here, a community of people. I can say that because I've been down here for like 20 some years, and I've seen the community flip and grow, and I've seen the stagnations where the community should have grown when people in higher places were stopping it. And in closing, hey, all I'm saying, public comment, expand it. IX1, 3rd and 7th and Main and Alameda.
My name is Iron G. Donato, and I live in Skid Row. I was homeless for 2 years, eating out of trash cans, trying to get any kind of assistance I can, and now I have my own place. It's a low-income housing. It's at the new terminal, and it has saved my life. And now when it comes to homes, I mean, in the IX1 zone, we cannot resist that we must keep all existing units protected, and that we cannot allow housing or any loss of housing to occur in Skid Row or downtown LA. We must initiate and create and maintain a public registry of units. And also in regards to arts and culture, I work with Studio 526. So we use arts to educate. I work with the Los Angeles Poverty Department. We use theater to show people what needs to be done. I work with Urban Voices Project, where we sing, and it brings people to open their hearts to start to do things differently. And I have a 2-year scholarship with the Street Symphony and the Fellows Program. And what we're doing there is out in the atmosphere, because it's changing the way people see Skid Row. It's reducing all our sorrows. It's bringing us better tomorrows. And I work at the Pico Union Project Sanctuary, where I had all the volunteers, and we give out 800 bags of food to the families in need. And we gave out 1,200 turkeys last Thanksgiving. And this is what we're doing. When you start giving, you start receiving. And we need to use arts and culture in Skid Row to change the way the world sees us, because we need to bring better tomorrows to Skid Row. And that starts with housing. We cannot change affordable housing. This is something we lead the nation. We are the #1 nation in homelessness. There is so much hopelessness in Skid Row. And when you use arts and singing and dance and creativity and rap and all kinds of things, we bring awesomeness to those that are in the hopelessness of the nothingness and the uselessness of homelessness. So please join me and support arts, education, and culture, and keep low-income housing in Skid Row now, somehow, anyhow. That has to stay. That must remain. Trust in your heart. This is what we have to do. Much love. Iron Donato.
Hi there, everyone. My name is John Malpede, and I've been working in Skid Row for many, many, many years with Inner City Law Center, Legal Aid Foundation, Los Angeles Poverty Department, and I wanted to, in all those years, I'd never heard of the IX1 zone. So I'm going to break that down a little bit. So first of all, there's the I, but it's really the I, and it's really the I of all my friends here and all the people who are currently in the Skid Row community. And it's a neighborhood and it's a community. It's one of the biggest recovery communities in anywhere, and it is that way because everyone in the community is an I, and they are a person who lives in a very low, extremely low income level. And then there's the X. The X is we don't want that to change. We don't want that to be diminished. We don't want people with a lot more money coming in here and building buildings and basically subjugating the culture and the individuals who live here now to their whims just because they have more money. No, no, no. So we have to keep the one zone, the boundaries of Skid Row. Ever since the 70s, Skid Row was defined from Main Street on the west, Alameda on the east, 7th Street on the south, 3rd Street on the north, and that was all low-income housing. You couldn't build anything else there. Now the IX1 zone has to be one zone, which means it has to be restored to the original borders for only low-income, extremely low-income, deeply low-income people to live. Because when they are the people in the neighborhood, the one people in the neighborhood, they create community, and when the city listens to them, problems are solved, not created. Thank you.
Hello, how you doing, everybody? My name is Lee Maupin, and I have an opportunity to talk to y'all about rezoning this place down here in Skid Row, the IX zone. Not no damn 5% of it. I'm talking about every inch of the thing is geared toward giving people housing and getting people off the street into some housing, because it's a whole lot of unhoused people down here, and I wish everybody luck, and I hope everybody good with their housing and stuff. I'm blessed to have housing, thank you, and I appreciate it. And now I'm babbling, so I'm finished.
Hello, my name is Diego Gomez, and I'm a graduate student at UCLA's Luskin School for Urban and Regional Planning. I'm submitting a public comment video on two important issues. The first is supporting the expansion of the IX1 zone for affordable housing only, with extremely and deeply low income levels to the existing Skid Row neighborhood boundaries from 3rd to 7th Streets and from Main to Alameda. The second issue I would like to raise is the importance of a Skid Row Neighborhood Council and representative body. Skid Row believes that promoting community participation and partnering with community organizations and local residents for cultural and historic preservation efforts should be expanded to develop a process and dedicate resources to support a neighborhood council and representative body for the Skid Row community. Residents and workers should have a direct channel to express their voices on all city decisions related to Skid Row, not just cultural and historic preservation efforts. The community planning process has shown the benefits of empowering Skid Row residents to advocate for their community, so a neighborhood council and representative body is critical to uplift and support the Skid Row community's needs and hold the city accountable. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Diane Frazauer. I live in an apartment like just outside the official Skid Row zone. And I feel that Skid Row in downtown LA needs to maintain its IX1 status. It actually needs every affordable housing unit built along with the entire 50 block zone set aside for LA's increasing marginalized homeless populations. If anything, I think Skid Row actually needs to expand just to meet the immense need for shelter, housing, and other services. Because I live like right outside the zone, I see the toll and human suffering and tragedy every day on a regular basis. Skid Row is actually the largest homeless community in the United States, and it still seems to be a source of controversy over the economic divide between the well-to-do and the down-out since it began in the 1880s. I feel that the Skid Row 2020 zone initiative was its proposal to build market rate housing and other buildings and businesses on approximately 75% of the designated Skid Row area is actually the biggest threat to Skid Row homeless population yet. Skid Row actually has only a current small fraction of the beds actually needed. There are thousands of people every day that are forced to sleep on the sidewalk in makeshift tents or simply with no tent or bed at all. And people usually end up here because they have nowhere else to go.
Hi, my name is Haik Mahmoudan. I run a community art space called Studio 526 in LA's Skid Row neighborhood, and I organize around housing justice. I demand the expansion of the affordable housing only zone, the IX1 zone, with housing for extremely low and deeply low income levels. This zone must be expanded to the existing legal Skid Row neighborhood boundaries, 3rd to 7th Street and Main to Alameda. The current LA City planning proposal decapitates and cuts off limbs from an already really hurting neighborhood. Skid Row is a working-class, poor residential neighborhood with a large unhoused population, and it is a predominantly Black and POC community. The fact that Black and POC neighborhoods are hardest hit by the violence of poverty and stripping of resources is chillingly predictable in our country. The white supremacist history and present in policies and laws is so key to understand how Skid Row is treated that I believe it's important to illustrate it further here. Paraphrasing and channeling Brian Stevenson's work against white supremacy, let's imagine we were in present-day Germany. Statistical evidence shows that Jewish citizens get disproportionately hit by housing, healthcare, and education inequalities, as well as prosecutions and jail times. Jews are routinely excluded from jury service. Further, imagine that neighborhoods populated mostly by Jews have the least resources available to them. And then imagine the government proposes to take away 75% of one already deeply marginalized Jewish neighborhood. Why, that would be an international outrage. I imagine that you do not think of yourselves as racist or anti-poor. Expanding the IX1 zone to all of Skid Row is the absolute least you can do.
Hi, my name is Leila Martinez. I am part of the LAPD. This means LA Poverty Department. Okay, it's a small group that advocate for homeless and also for changes in the Skid Row, like a community in downtown Los Angeles. In my opinion, affordable housing is a great goal that everybody homeless, number one, want to reach. But the problem is that I saw, for example, a couple of buildings around 7th Street that the people say that it's for homeless. The problem is that when you have to go, where you have to go to fill application, when they can start leasing, where do they have to go? It's no, we don't have it, people don't have a notion that when they started, how they, some people, yeah, can do it, but some people, they don't know what they have to do it to get some housing. Okay, and you know, another problem I think so is that I think it's not nice to see the building, because I think so in 7 and Maple, the building is already finished, and forget it. It was in winter time, people sleeping in the street. Now because the COVID, more people, have to go, can pay rent and stuff like that. And if you work, we go to the point, it's so hard to see people in the street when, they got places that I can shelter the people. It's so hard about it, I'm honest. This is what I want to say.
I am Sarah DeLyden, offering my public comment on the DTLA 2040 draft from the Fashion District. I've been a resident and creative small business owner in downtown Los Angeles for many years, and I'm a member of the Skid Row Now in 2040 coalition with my Skid Row neighbors. I urge you to expand the affordable housing only zone, the IX1 zone, with housing for extremely low and deeply low income levels to the existing legal Skid Row neighborhood boundaries, 3rd to 7th, Main to Alameda. The Skid Row neighborhood is a place with deep culture that I ask you to respect, with ample affordable housing and other healthy development for current residents and workers. Additionally, Skid Row has a high number of artists and culture bearers that live and work in the neighborhood. In order to make sure Skid Row residents benefit, we ask that specific measures be included, such as a property owner's fee for the arts, contracts with local artists, Firehouse 23 renovation with extensive and accessible programming for adults and youth, dedicated cultural space and new construction, and street vending support for local merchants. Last, I seek inclusionary zoning for all of downtown Los Angeles. Please require real estate developers to set aside no less than 25% of all downtown Los Angeles residential units built for affordable housing at a level for residents currently living in poverty. We need zoning that includes all of us who live and work in downtown. Thank you.
Hey, my name is Matt Miyahara, and I live at 6th and Spring, and I've been involved with and about Skid Row for going on 8 years now. We definitely need to expand the zone, they're calling it the IX1, to not include the zone down portion of Skid Row. It has to be the original parameters, 3rd to 7th and Main to Alameda. We need that to be only low income and deeply low income housing. And I also think we need to expand our arts, our public arts for Skid Row that represents Skid Row and its culture. Thank you.
My name is Christopher Mack, and I would like to speak to the expansion of the IX1 zone about 2020 and 2020 to 2040. And so I would like to address the issue about accessible and safe housing. Because every time we talk about affordable housing, a man may only have 2 quarters to rub together at any given night because he's oppressed in the economics of the city, the state, and the country. And we shouldn't be talking about affordable rather than accessible. And I think that the conversation should be more, what does accessible housing look like for every man, woman, and child in a condition of homelessness? Miles I roam just to make this dock my home, sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away.
Greetings. I am Henry Apodaca, Community Media Archivist for the Los Angeles Poverty Department's Skid Row History Museum and Archive. Here making a public statement regarding changes to the summer 2020 Downtown LA 2040 draft. It is in my opinion that we want the expansion of the IX1 zone for affordable housing only, with extremely low and deeply low income levels to the existing legal Skid Row neighborhood boundaries, which can be found from 3rd to 7th and Main to Alameda. In response to the draft statement, quote, preservation and maintenance of existing housing stock at the foundation of the community's affordable housing supply, end quote. We want this applied to the existing Skid Row neighborhood boundaries to avoid displacement of current residents. Again, between 3rd and 7th and Main to Alameda. In addition, we support the draft's focus on accessible, healthy, and safe housing opportunities affordable to low-income households, end quote. But we want this to include extremely low and deeply low-income households. Being media archivist for the Los Angeles Poverty Department has been one of great opportunity for me, not so much as an archivist, but also to learn about the neighborhood that Skid Row composes of. Lastly, as far as housing is concerned, as this draft is also concerned, it's important to note that we resolve this Gordian knot of an issue regarding housing, affordable housing, for those who have been affected most deeply by it, not necessarily in times prior to pandemic, even more so in times during. Again, I am Henry Apodaca, Community Media Archivist with the Los Angeles Poverty Department's Skid Row History Museum and Archive. Thank you very much.
Okay. Hi, my name is Stephanie. I'm a part of the downtown community of Skid Row. I'm an OG. Used to live on St. Julian Street in the Angeles Inn. And from the poverty that I'm seeing now, it's ridiculous. Because when I was living down there, it was not this bad. And this doesn't make any sense to me, how you guys are not developing these empty spaces, especially from 5th and Town that used to be the Harbor Lights, Safe Harbor, those buildings and all the way around that I've seen that's been empty for years. So everybody needs to get on their job, get busy, and start building some real housing. I am talking to the planners that's planning all of this. Are we going to have expensive housing or are we going to have cheap housing? But we need some housing for the homeless people. Whether you can make it cheap, low income, lower than lower, deeper than deeper. This is what we need for our people of homelessness, shelterness, all of that. We need your planners to do what you need to do so that the people can get out of the streets and get into some warm spaces where they used to be. And it's how it's supposed to be. So get busy, you planners, because we need this immediately. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ollie Linden, and I'm recording this video as my public comment for December 8th's Community Plan hearing regarding downtown LA and the Skid Row neighborhood. My first point is that the Affordable Housing Only Zone, the IX1 zone, needs to be expanded and needs to include housing for extremely low and deeply low income levels. The zone should be expanded to the existing legal Skid Row neighborhood boundaries, 3rd to 7th, Main to Alameda. The plan's commitment to public art projects and cultural programming should include consistent maintenance and additional amenities like hygiene stations, cooling stations, trees, shade structures, and seating to occur at the Skid Row parks, including San Julian Park and Gladys Park, as well as creating new Skid Row parks where it's possible. We also want this street safety and comfort investment on primary corridors in Skid Row, San Pedro, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th Streets. It's crucial to identify areas and buildings as resilient centers for public use during future climate events and other emergencies, but these resiliency centers need to be available 24/7 in Skid Row, where residents are often living in a state of emergency. Lastly, Skid Row has a high number of artists and cultural bearers that live and work in the neighborhood. In order to make sure Skid Row residents benefit, we ask that specific measures be included, such as property owner's fee for the arts, contracts with local artists, Firehouse 23 renovation with extensive and accessible programming for adults and youth, dedicated cultural space in new construction, and street vending support for local merchants. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Maya. My daughter, I'm an actor and poet. My daughter lived on Skid Row for 2 years in a hotel. I'm pretty familiar with the environment. Clearly, if there are approximately 7,000 to 10,000 people, men, women, and children in great need of housing within the existing boundaries of Skid Row, the 1x1 boundary needs to be expanded, moved in such a way to preserve existing low-income housing, promoting the development of extremely low-income housing and deeply low-income housing, with a stress being on deeply low income. This housing will have supportive services, including mental health, cultural activities, and job training. We urge you to consider this. There exists, as you are aware, a great need of our homeless brothers and sisters. We urge you to attack the nuts and bolts of this remediable, immediate situation, instead of giving all the contracts to the developers who build humongous structures, which only give a small percentage to low income, disregarding deeply low income altogether. And Section 8 vouchers, there's a paucity of those. We urge you to look at this ASAP.
Hello, my name is Harriet Brouwers. I'm the Associate Director of the Los Angeles Poverty Department, and we are a theater group, an arts organization that has worked in Skid Row since 1985. And really very happy with the IX1 zone, which you created, and also the extra layer of affordable housing, the deep low-income housing. But as you can see on this picture here behind me, the IX1 zone, which is the green part, is a very small part of Skid Row. And that means that the rest of Skid Row is open for market rate housing, which it never used to be. Skid Row, the boundaries were established in 1973, and then until that time, until 2000 actually, that was only zoned for low-income housing. And actually, there's been hardly anything built that is market rate. And as you know, people need affordable housing. So we would like the Department of City Planning to expand the zoning of the IX1 zone to go to the original boundaries of Skid Row, which are from Main till Alameda and from 3rd till 7th Street. We also want the community to be recognized as a community, because when the boundaries were established, it was also called the containment zone. And actually, you know, containment hasn't happened because homeless people are all over the city, and they are much worse off there than they are in Skid Row, because in Skid Row, the facilities are there. And what has happened because of this special zoning, it has established a community of people who have lived there, some for over 30 years or longer. And there's a lot of knowledge in the community about recovery and about how to deal with poverty and trauma. A lot of people have suffered. So our worry is that if the community doesn't have a say in what's happening, when more affluent people are moving into the community, they will not listen to the people that are already there, and many people will be displaced. And we want to prevent this. We want everybody who lives in Skid Row to be housed in Skid Row, because it's their community and they use the facilities and the services, and they need to be recognized as such.
My name is Lorraine Marlin. I'm a Skid Row artist, work with the LAPD. And I remember back in the 80s when it was really, 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 really bad. People were coming from everywhere, all over town, trying to find housing. The only thing they had down there was shelters, bad shelters. And then they started thinking about it because it was very difficult because women with children start coming down there and there was nowhere for them to go that was safe. And I think it's downright foolish not to think of a mother and her child for fair low housing. They are suffering bad. So I want to know whether they're going to do about the matter. Low rent for families is only right. They really need to think about what's going on in our Skid Row community. We have single people. We have people that don't have families. Some people have families to go to, and some people have no one to go to. There's a thing that people are dying, and if you notice with the COVID, people are really dying. So people don't have family members to help them with that extra little change or that extra little month's rent. So we definitely need to check out low income for people that can afford to have living. And maybe we can get a lot of these people off the street. A lot of people are afraid to stay inside because it sometimes can be very dangerous. Live in a building that's not controlled by security, that's trustworthy, and people that they can trust. So they rather be on the street. So we have to make our buildings safer. Hire people that really can do the job. I don't know why it's taking so long to make these housing affordable for people when you know people are out there and you know how much money they get from SSI or dinner relief and stuff like that. You know, we need to go way back like it was in the 1840s. Those houses that people could live in, room and board. I need a place to stay, and there's a whole lot of I's need a place to stay. And when it comes to the XXXX out, because we don't need all that expensive high-rising places in an area that people should have low income. So when it comes to we stand all together.
My name is Clancy Cornell, and I'm a member of the Los Angeles Poverty Department and the archivist at the Skid Row History Museum and Archive. The Skid Row neighborhood from 7th Street to 3rd Street and Main Street all the way to Alameda is home to a strong community of residents who deserve to be treated with dignity and remain in the community which they call home. Affordable housing is needed in Skid Row more than any community in Los Angeles. All existing affordable housing in Skid Row and throughout downtown Los Angeles must be protected. Developers must be required to set aside affordable units in residential construction throughout downtown Los Angeles. We must stop the criminalization of the community and redirect resources to residents to improve the neighborhood and the lives of those within it. It is about time that Skid Row residents have a say in their own future and have a voice in the policies that affect their lives. Skid Row needs its own neighborhood council.
Hi, my name is Mahdi Manji, and I'm a public policy advocate with Inner City Law Center. I want to talk to the planning department about an important priority for ICLC. But I want to first start off by saying the fear of not knowing where I'm going to sleep at night and how I'm going to pay for food has been the greatest fear I've ever faced in my life. And it's really a fear that we need to ameliorate all throughout the city of Los Angeles. And we need to ensure that everyone has access to a safe and affordable home. That's why we need to increase access to affordable housing. We should start by expanding the Skid Row Affordable Housing Only Zone with housing for extremely low and deeply low-income households. We should be expanding this to the existing legal Skid Row neighborhood boundaries from 3rd Street to 7th and from Main to Alameda. We also need to foster opportunities for individuals facing barriers to employment in Skid Row by offering Skid Row residents work opportunities in their neighborhood related to the parks, hygiene stations, resiliency centers, art projects, cultural programming, and other facility and engagement work we have identified in our letter to Planning Department. We think these are important priorities that will better the lives of all Skid Row residents and all of LA's downtown community. Thank you for your consideration.
Hi, my name is Zach Rutland, and I'm an archivist for the Skid Row History Museum and Archive for the Los Angeles Poverty Department. And I'm also an archivist at the Music Center for the Los Angeles Master Chorale. As someone who works in CD14, I'm asking you to expand the IX1 zone for affordable housing only with extremely low and deeply low income levels to the existing legal Skid Row neighborhood boundaries from 3rd to 7th and Main to Alameda. Skid Row has a high number of artists and culture bearers in the area, and as an archivist, I can lay claim to that this is absolutely true. There's definitely a history and community here that's dedicated to artistry and contributing to the culture. The current draft does have some protections for creative spaces and encouragement of the arts, but to make sure that this actually benefits Skid Row residents, we're asking that measures be included, such as a property owner's fee for the arts, contracts with local artists, Firehouse 23 renovation with extensive and accessible programming for adults and youth living in Skid Row, and dedicated cultural space in new construction and street vending support for local merchants. Thank you very much.
Hi there, this is Soma, Executive Director of the Sidewalk Project, and we are a well-being project. We work in 5 different cities with a really large focus in Skid Row, in downtown Los Angeles, and we wanted to weigh in on the upcoming zoning plans for downtown and Skid Row. You know, one of the main focuses that we have is arts and music and public health. We are a harm reduction organization that's approved by the city of Los Angeles. And, you know, we're on the ground every day here in Skid Row in the time of COVID. And, you know, it's very important to us to see that the voices of the community are heard in this regard. You know, one of the things that we want to really stress is that with the expansion of the affordable housing only zone, with housing for extremely low and deeply low income levels, you know, we want to talk about this. This zone really should be expanded to the existing legal Skid Row neighborhoods, you know, the boundaries, so that it's very important to us that includes 3rd to 7th and Main to Alameda. You know, one of the other things that we really want to stress, especially because we are an arts organization and we care so much about well-being, and we see what that does for mental health in communities. We see such a big need for, you know, for hygiene stations. You know, people need to be able to wash their hands. It's very hard to push back against, you know, COVID and, you know, all of the other epidemics that we're up against if people can't simply wash their hands. You know, because of systemic racism and poverty and all of the things that we're up against, where this part of Los Angeles is not treated in the same way around climate. So we need trees, we need cooling stations, we need shade structures, and you know, we need more Skid Row parks. We want street safety and comfort investment on, you know, these primary corridors in Skid Row, you know, San Pedro, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th Street. So, so that people can have health and safety and cooling and hygiene, and then also the potential for, you know, public arts and cultural programming. Thank you for listening. I could go on and on about this, but please protect our marginalized and most vulnerable citizens. Appreciate you listening to us. Thanks.
Hi everyone, my name is Vijay Gupta and I'm speaking to the public comment section for the expansion of IX1. We want to expand the Skid Row neighborhood boundaries from 3rd to 7th and restore it from Main to Alameda. And what we're particularly enthusiastic about here is to facilitate the integration of locally produced and community-oriented public art projects and cultural programming into public spaces to reinforce community character. Skid Row is a recovery zone. Skid Row is a re-entry zone. And the arts are critical to the vital health, the mental health, the public health of this community. When people make their own lives in the vision of what they believe in, they thrive. The arts are a way to nourish communities, and we believe that the expansion of the IX1 zone will lead to the integration of the arts in everyday life here in Skid Row. Thanks so much for listening.
My name is Iron Donato. When I was wrongfully denied my SSI, I ended up in Skid Row, eating out of trash cans for 2 years, homeless on the street. I couldn't qualify for any government assistance, but that's all behind me. I now live at the new terminal. It's right in the heart of Skid Row on 7th Street between Gladys and Stanford. So I ask you, are you looking for a place to move? If so, consider downtown LA. Downtown Skid Row neighborhood is a resource for the entire region. It is a community that has taken on the most difficult social problems, and they have done so joyously. Now you can become part of this community, and you can learn from this community practices and work to realize them. Now it's a recovery neighborhood, so relationships and meaningful things do not come from hanging out at bars. It's a neighborhood of second chances. You'll be able to develop meaningful relationships by getting involved with your neighbors, all of them. You can become involved with social services and grassroots activities like I have done. Not only will you enjoy your new living space, but you will do so knowing that downtown has inclusive zoning and it welcomes residents at all income levels. You will have the satisfaction of knowing that any and all development in the area generates funds to subsidize housing in Skid Row. Now here is a place you can live guilt and resentment free. No longer will the subterranean guilt of ignoring privilege haunt you and through psychological displacement manifest itself as anger and rage. No, living the guilt and resentment free lifestyle, you will become a beacon to our entire society in which suppressed guilt and its defense, for you name it, income equality, global warming, slavery, the obliteration of Native Americans. All of this has perpetrated hostility. But we don't have this here in Skid Row. For here we have the NCD, the new compassionate downtown. I welcome you to move here too. Much love, Iron.